All right, we're gonna go ahead and start the public power hour. We've got a lot of folks out there, and I'm just gonna kind of read through a little preliminary information, kind of set the ground rules, because a lot of y'all may be here for the 6 o'clock meeting, or you may be here for the public power hour. So let me just kind of tell you, I want to welcome everyone. Give the screens here. So on the screen are the ground rules for this meeting. I'll just add a few additional comments and clarification. As you can see, there are no directors or staff in here except Sharon Lamar, our city clerk. That's her job to take notes, and J.D. McCauley, who's our HR director, who will handle signing in and directing movement on the floor. The directors are not here because this is an unofficial council meeting. It's an informal listening opportunity for council to hear matters of interest from citizens or concerns that are not on the agenda items. So anything on the agenda items tonight is not what we're talking about from 5 to 6, okay? We won't be voting on anything. We're not going to be solving anything tonight. No action will be taken. We're here to listen, ask questions, and make sure we understand whatever concerns the citizens have as far as what they're asking. So if you do want to come in front of us and you have not sent us an email in advance, that's okay. Just raise your hand and JD will have you come down and so we can get your name for that. So I do know we have one person, Ms. Carol Henson, who did reach out to us. So at this time, if you would like to come up and talk to us, thank you. JD, let's put that in front of it, on our side of the dais, because I think we found last time if we do it in the front, then, yeah, see if that doesn't, just speak a little bit louder, but I think that'll work better.
All right. Well, just want to thank you for letting us come in and express our concerns. This is about the street flooding on Bentley Drive, which happened on the 8th of September. And it was a horrifying sight. I have pictures on my phone of that if you'd like to look at it.
Why don't you tell folks, I don't know if everybody knows where Bentley Drive is, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of where it is? I know a little bit, but why don't you just kind of educate everybody?
Okay, it is off of Walnut Lane, off of 25 on Walnut Lane, and it's the first subdivision.
Yep.
On that street as you turn off of 25. It was just a horrifying thing. I had picked my grandchildren up at school, and they go to Belvedere Elementary, and we were coming in, and it was raining. It was raining really hard, and I kept thinking, because this has happened before. It happened September of last year. Anyway, I was thinking, please don't let that street be flooded. When I turned in, I am about the second set of townhouses, the third set of townhouses on that street. When I turned in, I saw it, and it was pouring the rain. I had children in the car. I was going to park my car down at the end if it was just me and walk up. They were scared to death too. And so I drove through that water, got in my driveway. The water was all the way up my driveway to the sidewalk in front of my house. Now, the thing is, there's a construction site right joining that street. They're building some new townhouses, which would be good. But this has been ongoing for a year and a half, and they're not making progress. They'll be out there working, and then all of a sudden they're gone. They don't work for maybe a month or so. Then they come back and do a little bit more. And it's just a red clay mud that washes down the street. And whenever it floods, it was bad. And I have pictures on my phone if you would like to look at it.
I have last year's.
Right.
And I just don't know, what can be done or what we can do about it. I'm just...
Well, I did just very briefly talk to Tanya Strickland, who I believe you spoke with.
Yes.
And I've not had a chance to talk to her today, but I believe she's fully aware of it after you called.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, the city is working on their end of what we can do, okay?
Okay.
The second part where I think the challenge is we don't, unfortunately, we can't control the other developers to make them move faster. So I didn't really quite grasp that whole part of it. So, but I think it was important for council to hear. But I will tell you, Tanya and Tom are aware of it, and I don't have an answer for you, but we will definitely, by tomorrow, I'll have a good feel for what the situation is, and either probably Tanya will make sure she reaches out to you.
Okay. Well, if they could just put something to, a barrier or something to keep
Yeah.
the water from washing off that muddy site down that street, that would, to me, solve a lot of the problem.
You like the subdivision you live in, right?
Yes, I like where I'm at.
You just don't want to walk out the door into a pool, right?
Right.
Okay, okay.
Into a lake.
I live right across the street from her, and it was all the way up to my garage.
I just can't afford a boat.
No. Well, you both are very sweet, and thank you very much for sharing. Is any questions that council has for you?
How long have you said that subdivision's been under construction?
I know at least a year and a half.
So since last September?
Well, before that, they
Before that.
come in and cleared everything out up there before that.
Well, I don't know the details, but I would assume that probably all the stormwater has probably not been controlled yet. But Ms. Tanya, I'm sure if they're in violation, we'll make sure that they are cited. I'm pretty sure.
Building and houses or nothing.
I'm sure Ms. Tanya will cite them if they're in
For the
violation
silt.
for the construction measures they're supposed to take for the erosion control. I'm sure she will.
So anything we can control, we will.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to be in touch with you tomorrow with some more details. Is that okay?
That would be great. That
And-
would just be great.
Britton, one thing I'd like to add, this past Thursday, and I believe even the week before, we had tremendous rainfall. We had 2 storm systems that just sat over the city. I know for a fact last Thursday, because I had to drive around for an hour and a half. Our real estate agents were at my house. I coming down Martintown Road, literally the entire road was flooded. The storm drains were, that happens from time to time, unfortunately. And I think the time you were talking about, I was looking at a job over off of 5 Notch Road near Ponderosa, and it was the same thing. Even the county drains were busting their seams coming into yards. So unfortunately, that has a lot to do with it as well. It is unfortunate. Now, as far as what we can control with if they don't have the proper silt fencing up and they're allowing that stuff to drain, that is something I guess Tanya will look into. But just keep in mind, though, we have had 2 or 3 storms in the last month and a half that's just brought so much rain that you're just driving down main roads and it's throwing water everywhere too. So and it is scary. You're right. Me and my daughter are riding around, and I'm coming down East Martintown Road, and it's just throwing water everywhere. Every storm drain you see, it's going in and out. So that is unfortunate. Unfortunately, I wish we could control the weather better, but we have had some bad storms that have just sat over the area, which doesn't help the issue either.
Well, last year when it happened, last September, we didn't raise a fuss or anything about it. We just figured they were gonna work on that and fix it. So evidently it didn't, because it was September this year, it came down again. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Now
yeah.
I get anxiety when it starts to rain hard.
So part of the advantage of the idea of the public power hour is just this. Instead of you calling somebody at the city or just calling one person, guess what? You got 6 people hearing you,
Exactly.
okay? So that means we can ensure that we're able to look into it, okay?
Okay.
And we will.
I know you.
Okay, thank y'all very much. You're very sweet. We
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's so cute. I'll just keep it there for the whole.
No.
Oh, you're gonna do it that way? Yes, even better. Okay, good. Yeah, that's right. That's how we had it. I'm sorry. You're right. That's how we had it. That way it still mess up when they put the sheet. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back. Come on down, JD. Yeah, that's how I did it. You're right. That is the correct way to do it. Yeah, just get that information from him.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. You cool?
Yeah, can you just give him some information he needs just on that form, if you don't mind?
Steve Donahue.
Yes, Steve, okay.
I vowed about 8 years ago never to come back here. So you got me on that one. I broke a vow.
Okay.
The first thing I want to say is I appreciate you doing this, Mr. Mayor. It takes away maybe chewing up formal time in the city council and stuff that what I would call nitnoy. So I have two issues here I wanted to see if you could do something about. I'll
Okay.
take the hardest one first. And this is not meant to be a trick question, but could anybody on council tell me how Project Jackson is doing financially? Revenues in, how much money is being soaked up from other sources, how we're paying off the revenue bonds. Now, I know it's catching you cold. And the budget is 257 pages long. I know because I read it. But for a long time since we floated the bonds, which is in May of 2017 B bonds, I haven't seen anything. And we spent about $250,000. Tryon company, they've since changed. It was Mr. Goldsmith. I had lengthy conversations with him when it was going on. And we came up with a spreadsheet, and this is what we told, this is how we're going to pay for it. I don't know if y'all remember it. I lived through it. We litigated it. I lost most of it. I won part of it, but I lost most of it. The part that I cared about the most. And just to refresh your memory, the spreadsheet was scenario 90. I still have it. You might want to take a look at it someday. This is how we're going to pay for it. And what I'm asking for is for you as city council. I asked that question. It wasn't a gotcha question. Just to make you think about it. For people like me and Joe Sixpack, how are we supposed to know how we're doing? And I'm just going to give you one example if I could approach the bench here.
Sure.
It's I think pretty straightforward. I just lifted. It says what the plan was for 2020. How much we were going to collect. The first, 5 columns. You had TIFs, parking revenue, accommodation tax, stadium revenue, hospitality tax. They're going to roll all that together, and that's how we're going to pay for the bond. The debt service for 2020 under the plan was $3.5 million. And as you see down here, I put a note here. 7 months after we did the spreadsheet, the council went forward. Instead of borrowing $60 million, we borrowed $69 million. And the spreadsheet was based on spending $10 million of cash and borrow $60 million. Well, we forgot about the cash part and just borrowed the whole thing. There might have been a policy decision. I'm not even being critical of that. Someone said, hey, you're getting 2.5% money. Why not borrow the whole thing? Could be. I don't know. But as you can imagine, it ups the debt service. So here's what actually happened. And I'm going to tell you right now what I put down for actual. If you had Cammie Hayes here, the accountant, she said, well, that's wrong. And of course it's wrong. And that's my point. I have no idea how we're paying for it. I lifted off the TIF revenues in the mid. I think it's 2.1 million, but I don't know. Parking revenues were only 40,000 as opposed to $500,000. Hotel accommodation tax, the spreadsheet was based on just the accommodation tax from that one hotel. What you see on what took place was $138,000. That's from all the accommodation tax citywide. Stadium revenue, they show, and I got this from the continuing disclosure statements they put on the municipal bond website. They show it's available, 538,000. That's true, but if you read the footnote, in the planning document, we had a sinking fund for maintenance, which is probably a smart idea. 200,000 a year, but that's cash. It's kind of like depreciation. You have the cash, but at some point you got to replace the building. You got to replace the roof, speakers. I hear they got $1 million project putting up new lights, whatever. So we didn't deduct $200,000. The long and short of it is, and you take this to Cammie Hayes, she can say, oh yeah, the guy's got it all wrong. Of course I got it wrong, because I don't know what the data is. I think the hospitality tax, we spend $1 million, I think, and that's citywide. The plan was to only spend $300,000. The point in all this number is that Ross Perot said about NAFTA, the sucking sound you hear is the jobs going to Mexico. Well, if I could channel him for a bit, the sucking sound you hear is Project Jackson's when it's not paying its way. So, if you're not coming up to snuff on TIF or the mid, where parking revenue is down, you're going to pay the bond because we mortgage City Hall. We're going to pay it. I know that. And to pay it, we're soaking up hospitality taxes, accommodation taxes citywide. And what I think is going to happen, because the last mayor alluded to it, was we got a tax increase coming. And I would hope we'd at least be transparent about it. There is a gorilla in the room down there, and it's down there. And you got to feed the gorilla. It's done now. Nothing we can't undo it. But, and the taxes you increase, nobody in the TIF area, including my own taxes, I might add, are going to pay for city expenses. All the taxes I pay, except for about maybe 5%, go to fund the stadium. Because you're in the TIF, tax increases go to fund the bonds. They don't fund the city. So I would like to see something that shows, here's what it costs, here's the source of funds. That's all on the website. I found the website a little difficult. You got like budgets on there. They're PDF documents. I think they're photographs. Try to do searches on them. You can't get it done. I would hope we could fix that. It's a minor problem. That's just 1 year, and we got more years coming. I would hope you would have something on the website to show the citizens how we're paying for it. The next thing is a private peeve of mine. It has nothing to do with Project Jackson. About every Sunday morning, about maybe 8 in the morning, there's a landscape contractor comes down my road, wheels out a lawnmower, riding lawnmower, leaf blowers, and has at it. This is Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I've about had it up to here with leaf blowers. I tried to settle it on my own, but they didn't want to hear it, and it wasn't worth so fine. You want to go out on your back deck, there's a contractor. The city has a noise ordinance, and I just drafted my own ordinance, basically tacks onto the existing noise ordinance. And I'll read it to you. It's not that complicated. If you read the noise ordinance, it's Article 3, Section 12 of the Municipal Code. It says the following acts are declared nuisances, and it lists 15 of them. One is construction. You can't do construction on Sunday unless you get a special permit. Makes sense. Got air hammers going and all that, and no one wants to hear that, especially if they're building in your neighborhood. So my idea was add number 16, commercial landscaping. Noise associated with routine property maintenance by a landscaping business used either in part or in whole for residential purposes that takes place between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. the following day, and between 8 p.m. Saturday and 7 a.m. the following Monday. The headline of this whole paragraph is the following are violation of the noise ordinance. This restriction does not apply during the period commencing 10 days before the first Monday of the Masters Golf Tournament. I know everybody's getting excited about getting ready for the Masters, so I would accept it. Again, if I could approach the Masters. And just if I could come full circle back around what Rich talked, I don't find, I know you got a lot of things on your plate. I don't find the website that easy to navigate. And I don't think I'd ever hold up the city of Augusta as a way to do things. But I do find their website at least better. They have a dashboard, how we doing on the budget, how we doing on, they call them tax allocation districts in Georgia as opposed to TIF. How we doing there, and they have, you know, bar graphs, pie charts, all that, where a citizen can click on it and say, oh yeah, it looks like we're pretty good, or it looks like we didn't collect quite enough revenue here, so that's A. And finally, I don't know why North Augusta doesn't northaugusta.gov. I don't know how you got northaugusta.net. I would think you ought to up it to, you are a government. And it must have been early days, people just trying to put a website together. And I checked the website, and that domain is available, northaugusta.gov. So that's all I have, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Couple things. Let's start with this last thing. We are, as far as, thank you for the information about the landscaping piece and the noise ordinance. This is something we will look into. I can't respond to it because I can't respond to that right now. But this is exactly what the public power hour is about. You need to let us know about an issue you're running across. We need to look into it. So what we're doing with this is within the week, you will hear from us about it, okay? Probably by tomorrow. But what I'm saying is we have that in the gun. So just let you know.
I've lived it for 14 years. You don't have to do it by tomorrow.
No, but what I'm saying, just want to thank you for that. To answer your question, I agree with you. I think we've all said, I said it often during the campaign, I don't particularly think our website is user-friendly. We are in the process of updating their domain, okay? So for exact for what you said. So our city administrator, Jim Clifford, has worked very hard on that. So that is going to happen, okay, for a lot of reasons. And that's one of the ones you said, plus security and safety. And we also do, if I'm not mistaken, the prior council did put money in one of the sales tax to, we're going to be doing a lot of updating of our financial system, everything from how we deal with water. Okay, so that is on our radar. We're familiar with it. We're aware of that. So I just want to let you know we are going to be dealing with it. I don't have a time frame for you on that, but you're not the only person that knows about it. Okay.
Yeah. It needs to be searchable. Like, you got a 257-page budget.
I agree.
I should be able to type in accommodation tax and bing, 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 bing. I get every hit. It was catch as catch can. Sometimes I got it. Sometimes I didn't. I think where they're doing the PDF, they're probably putting it in a machine, putting it in a machine, and it's just photographing it. And it's more efficient that way, but for users, we need to find software that automatically converts a PDF that can be searchable.
Yeah.
So I won't take up any more
But anyway,
time.
so we will respond to you concerning the landscaping piece. So, and I agree with you, but we are aware of and we are going to be improving that website.
And also, let me channel a little bit my good friend Fred Alardi. He's asked for this many, many times. Prior mayor, could we get some information on, here's the debt service. It's the biggest single payment. I think, if I read the budget right, the single biggest check that's written, $3.9 million. I don't know any $3.9 million. And people ought to know with the $3.9 million where we're getting it from.
Yeah.
That's all.
I understand.
That's all I'm asking.
I understand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All
Thank
right,
you, sir.
Take care.
Yes, sir. All right. Anybody else? Now, Tom, okay. Tom? Okay. So, now, Tom, let me, I'm just gonna, do you have something in specific? Because the public power hour is not for you to come down and tell us about the 100.
No, I'm not.
The ordinance is an issue. We've addressed that. We understand that. So unless it's something in particular, that's not what the public power hour is for.
Okay, well, all I need to do is let you know
Okay.
that I have contacted Dominion Electric
Yep.
to ask them to come and inspect it at one area that I think should be concerned to everybody.
Okay.
I'm work with them one at a time, case at a time,
Okay.
on areas where the power lines are being overrun by growth
Okay,
lines and
good.
stuff like that, so that can be taken care of before wintertime sneaks up on us.
Good.
And we wind up with people without power. It wouldn't affect me because I have a standby generator
Okay.
that automatically comes on when the power goes off. But other people are not at that fortunate or that thinking that far ahead. So I want to just let you know that I will be working with them, and I'll give you a progress report as it comes along.
Thank you very much. We work closely with Dominion, and I will reach out to our contact person tomorrow to confirm that everything's working good with that. But thank you. That's good information. You're right on track with that one. Thank you. Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you, sir. All right. The fun has just begun. Anybody else for the public power hour? Okay. Yes, sir. Watch out, Mike. Be careful.
Mayor Williams
Put to
and
sleep.
council, thank you so much for hearing the public and these comments.
Would you,
my
you
name
mind
is-
just tell him your name? You need to tell him your name if you haven't already.
My name is Gordon Maynor, M-A-N-E-R. I live on Seton Circle in North Augusta. We're brand new here. We moved here from Athens. We love this town. You guys and the city staff, from our perspective, are doing a great job. I retired from the University of Georgia, and with the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, which is one of the largest institutes of government in the country, and I worked primarily with city and counties for the last 30 years in that capacity. I know what good government is, and I think what I'm seeing so far is y'all are on the ball and heading in the right direction. I'm excited about the vision for the community, for downtown and for other areas, and hope that y'all will continue to make decisions that are in that direction of that vision. Keeping this community as it is just a great place. You feel safe here. We don't see any elements of unsafe conditions, and your police department is doing a wonderful job from our perspective. I've always asserted that people will do what they're allowed to do, and a good, solid police department keeps those kind of things at check. And it's exciting to be here. We love this community, and I wish you all well. And if there's anything we can do to help you all out, let us know.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
And
You know,
welcome to North Augusta.
That's Ned's fault.
Yeah, the Carolina fans
Man.
probably aren't happy.
Yeah. So I tell you, as I've mentioned at the study session, Mr. Maynor, he reached out to myself and Mr. Clifford, and we had a nice conversation. So, he wanted to get involved, and he's thrown his name. So, as I've said, everybody, you're on a list. So we are looking forward to figuring out what is the best way to use your talents and skills. But you reached out, and we appreciate that. We will always accept positive comments. Thank you, Mr. Maynor. All right, it's about 5:30. Is anybody else for the public power hour? Okay. All right, at this point, we're going to close the public power hour and give this council a chance to take a little break before we start back at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening. I call the September 20th, 2021 City of North Augusta regular City Council meeting to order. If you would bow your head, you're welcome to join me in prayer. Dear God, I lift up this council to you, Lord. I ask that we have a servant heart that is open to discern what is in the best interest as we do the work of the city. I ask that you give us a purposeful resolve as we listen to our citizens and each other as we strive to honor you in our decisions. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll take our roll call from my far left. Please give your name for the record.
Eric Presnell.
David McGee.
Pat Carpenter.
Britton Williams.
Bob Brooks.
Kevin Toole.
Okay. Item 4, approval of minutes. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions from the study session minutes of August the 16th, 2021, the regular City Council meeting minutes of August the 16th, 2021, the special called study session minutes of August the 23rd, 2021, and the study session minutes of September 13th, 2021? Hearing none, they stand as distributed. Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Lauren Hammond if she would, from the Martintown Road chapter of the Daughters of American Revolution, if you would come forward me and meet me right in front of the podium. Okay. I had a wonderful opportunity this past week to eat lunch with the Daughters of the American Revolution. We had a wonderful time, didn't we? And we had a great conversation, and it was great to hear some thoughts from folks about the Constitution. So what we are doing tonight is, whereas our founding fathers, including South Carolinians Pierce Butler, Charles Pinckney, John Rutledge, and Charles Coatsworth Pinckney risked their fortunes and some even their lives to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, did ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America. And whereas September the 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution provides an historic opportunity for all Americans to learn about and recall the achievements of our founders and to reflect on the rights and privileges of citizenship, as well as its attendant responsibilities. And whereas the independence guaranteed to the American people by the Constitution should be celebrated by appropriate ceremonies and activities during Constitution Week, September the 17th through the 23rd, 2021, as designated by the proclamation of the President of the United States of America in accordance with Public Law 915. Now, therefore, I, Britton S. Williams, Mayor of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, do hereby proclaim September the 17th to the 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week in the City of North Augusta, South Carolina, and urge all citizens to reflect during that week on the many benefits of our federal Constitution and all the privileges and responsibilities of American citizenship. In witness whereof, I have here and set my hand and caused the seal of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina to be affixed this 20th day of September 2021. And we're proud of the Daughters of American Revolution, and thank you for your leadership and the service hours your organization does. Thank you. All right, let's get around. You know, we've got a big turnout here, and I know a lot of people are watching. All I would tell you is we're getting ready to get into the crux of the meeting, but when we're finished with the basic agenda, after we open it up at the very end for any citizens involved questions outside what we're going to talk about tonight, I've got a number of important items I'd like to share. So please, if you're watching live stream, once we finish everything, don't turn it off. Hang on a few more minutes so you can hear some updates from the city, from me representing the city. So I just want to let everybody know that. All right, new business, item number 6, annexation. Ordinance number 2021-12 to change the corporate limits of the city of North Augusta by accepting the petition requesting annexation by the landowners and annexing plus or minus 3.03 acres of property located at 1295 West Martintown Road and owned by M.B. Jones Oil Company, Inc. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading?
So moved.
First by Mr. Presnell, second,
Oh, second.
Mr. McKee. Anything you'd like to share with this, Mr. Clifford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a piece of property that is along Martintown Road, north of I-20 before you get to Gregory Lakes Road, and that is currently occupied by a gas station, and they are seeking to be incorporated into the city limits. It is contiguous property to the city, and so based on this being a request from the property owner and reviewed by the staff, our recommendation is to approve this ordinance.
Okay,
Sir,
thank
back to you.
Okay. Any citizen comments? Okay. Any discussion from council? Hearing none, I will ask for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 7, zoning. Ordinance number 2021-13 to amend the zoning map of the city of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 7.25 acres of land owned by S&H Enterprises, Aiken County tax parcel number 013-20-03-004 from IND Industrial to TC Thoroughfare Commercial. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading?
So moved.
First by Mr. Brooks, a second.
Second.
Mr. Toole, anything you'd like to share, Mr. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This piece of property is shown here on the map is actually part of the entrance to our industrial park, and the reason why this is requested to be rezoned as thoroughfare commercial is to support a larger effort across multiple parcels for a Kia dealership here in the city of North Augusta, right there on Jefferson Davis Highway. And if you drive down Jefferson Davis Highway today, you can see the old Toyota dealership being dismantled. This is a great economic opportunity for the city of North Augusta to add a car dealership to our inventory. And so based on the request of the petitioner and also based on the recommendation of staff, we believe you should move forward on this ordinance.
Thank you. Any citizen comments? Okay, any discussion from council? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 8, zoning. Ordinance number 2021-14 to amend the zoning map of the city of North Augusta, South Carolina by rezoning plus or minus 4.45 acres of land owned by the city of North Augusta, Aiken County tax parcels number 007-07-06-003, 007-07-06-004, and 007-07-06-005 from GC General Commercial and R14 Large Lot Single Family to P Public Use. Do I have a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading?
I'll second.
Ms. Carpenter, a second by Mr. McGee. Okay, anything you'd like to share with us, Mr. Clifford?
Yes, sir. And I understand a number of our folks in the audience tonight are here for this particular item, so I'll give a little bit of history here for our viewers, our citizens in attendance, and also for the council. So during a project review as part of the city's ongoing due diligence, it came to my attention that the East Buena Vista site for the public safety headquarters was going to incur additional costs, also had serious limitations on the use of that property, to include the inability to expand in future years. Based on this information, I directed the project manager and engineering firm, JLA, to conduct a side-by-side comparison of the city-owned properties at East Buena Vista and also at Georgia Avenue, also known as the Flythe and Seven Gables properties. The staff concluded the Georgia Avenue site provided cost savings, enabled future expansion, and unlike the last time the city went through this presentation, would accommodate the retention of the two legacy buildings on Observatory Avenue. I took these findings to the City Council in a study session, and this council provided guidance to conduct a sketch plan review with the Planning Commission, discuss the project with our nonprofit organizations, notably the Punch and Judy Players and Historic North Augusta, and listen to citizen feedback. I took the results of those engagements back to the City Council, where I recommended we move forward with a P zoning action to the Planning Commission, which the Council concurred with by passing a resolution to that effect. I presented the city's request to 5 members of the Planning Commission this past Thursday, where they voted 5-0 to not recommend approval of the P public zoning for the Georgia Avenue properties. During the sketch plan review, they had asked the city to consider 3 specific items. The first, to represent design options, which we did, and the commission had no feedback on that item. The second was to provide traffic information. The city had a preliminary, not final, but a preliminary traffic assessment completed, which was presented in hard copy to the Planning Commission and further briefed by the professional engineer who authored that report. One commissioner in particular felt that traffic study was inadequate despite the presentation. And lastly, the third was to consider other site options. This council directed staff to consider only currently owned city properties and to not decommission the community center. The Planning Commission felt there were other options within the city, but did not specifically name them aside from the Buena Vista site. So I bring this to the council today. My recommendation is unchanged. I believe the Georgia Avenue site is the best location for the public safety headquarters based on cost, future expansion potential, historical preservation, and based on the input from the public safety director and the command staff, the best place within the city to police this building. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, I turn it back to you.
Okay. I'm not going to ask this question because I know we're going to have citizen comments. So let me say how much, first of all, we appreciate the public being here. It is great to see citizens that care. I've asked Sharon Lamar, our city clerk, to keep the time for me. So for folks who haven't been here in a while, you won't see a big 5-minute clock. I think that's intimidating. I don't like it. But Ms. Lamar will be keeping the time for me. Since this will be the 4th opportunity citizens have had to speak concerning the police headquarters, we had a public input session with our engineer and contractor and Mr. Clifford. We had citizens share when we voted to send the resolution to the Planning Commission for their meeting last Thursday, as well as there was citizen input, of course, at the Planning Commission meeting last Thursday. This will be the 4th input for citizens, and citizens will still have another opportunity at the 2nd reading at the next council meeting. I say all that for this reason. Council is aware of the comments and concerns expressed at the Planning Commission meeting last Thursday and the prior meetings. So I'll ask you to please keep your marks to within 5 minutes and don't repeat something that has already been said by someone else tonight. We want to hear your information that will help us make our decision, but we don't need the same refrain over and over. As been the case as mayor, I've been very flexible if needed on the 5-minute rule, and I will continue tonight. Fortunately, everyone's been very respectful in keeping it, and if we all work together, we can ensure everyone has a chance to share and have an opportunity to share. So, with that being said, who wants to come up first? And what I'd ask you to do is come up and give your name and address for the record. Come on up, sir.
As a moment of clarification, you mentioned tonight that most of the council people have heard the Planning Commission's presentation. We were prepared tonight to pretty much say the same thing because we wanted to be part of the official record. How has that happened?
Well, we live stream our meeting, so I wasn't at the Planning Commission, but I watched it online. So,
Understood.
So I said I'm open to, I'm not telling you can't speak. All I'm saying is
Why don't I
just
just-
work with me. That's all I'm asking.
I promise I will.
Yeah. All I'm saying is not everybody, but what I'm saying is just work with me, Mr. Lardy.
I'll try. Okay. I started off my last presentation and asked the rhetorical question, why am I here? And I think I heard the answer on the radio this morning. I was listening to the Glenn Beck show, and he was talking about him sending some planes over to Pakistan to retrieve some people. And he had written a letter to the Pakistan president. He may have gone over, he may have sent the planes to Afghanistan. In any case, the Pakistan president asked him, why are you doing it? And his answer was, you do it because it's the right thing to do. And that's pretty much why I'm here tonight. I'm a concerned citizen here to challenge the use of historic property sitting in the middle of a beautiful neighborhood for a public safety complex. I could say the same thing my wife's aunt said to me in many heated family discussions. You don't have a dog in this fight. And I do not believe it was a citizen's duty to speak early in a process and identify possible situations that I believe was wrong. If I did not do that, I was shirking my implied responsibility. I think we must all ensure that the city is operating in a financially viable way and insist the evaluations that are provided are reviewed and evaluated for their validity. With that in mind, let me say the following. What is zoning? Zoning is simply protection. When we decide to purchase a piece of property, we want to know at the time of purchase what we can build on it and what is going to be near the property I am about to buy. In some way, it creates a neighborhood where people live and socialize together. You are here today with the charter of deciding whether to rezone the 7 Gables Flythe property. A series of events, including a costly mistake by the city made purchasing the property in 2016 for $850,000, have led us here. You will vote whether to change the zoning for 1220 and 1220 and a half Georgia Avenue from R14 large lot, single family resident to P, public use. But in effect, you will decide whether the only place in North Augusta that you can reasonably locate its public safety headquarters is on this lot in our one and only historic district on the National Register. On May 17, 2018, the Planning Commission had a public meeting to discuss rezoning of the 2.41 acres at those lots. After considerable discussion, including input from numerous concerned citizens, the Planning Commission was polled. The statements from 6 commissioners and the chairman were fairly consistent and are preserved on the city website. Of special interest to me is the statement by Commissioner, now Mayor, Britton Williams. I believe the Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District should be preserved in this area, especially given the citizen input to the history of North Augusta, and in a 7-0 vote, the application was rejected. So now the tally is 12-0. We went back to the Planning Commission and they came out with the same results. The city went on to generously offer $270,000 for another property on Martintown Road, one purchased by the owner for $180,000 a short time earlier, and where the new fire station is currently being built. Everybody wins. But the city circled back around to the 7 Gables Flythe property. I got about another page. For the site of a public safety facility. Everyone agrees a new public safety facility is an urgent requirement. And by the way, let me digress for a second. We've talked about this over and over again. Everybody in this room agrees that those poor public safety people need to get out of their present situation. We did not hold them up. The need existed long before Riverside Village was imagined, yet city officials did not give it the priority it deserved. The need has continued to grow as our North Augusta population expands. The sense of urgency has recently been accelerated. On June 14, 2021, a presentation was made by the city and Johnson, LaShoba, and Associates, also known as JLA, many construction projects in the past years have been executed by JLA. They made a comparison between two and only two sites for the building of public safety headquarters. One was identified as Buena Vista, located on Riverside Boulevard and Buena Vista Avenue, and the second was called Georgia Avenue, the property in the historic district. Are these the only two suitable tracts of land in a city of 21 square miles populated by 23,000 people? I don't think so. Did they do their true due diligence? I am neither a builder nor an architect, but I have some unanswered questions about the presentation. Somehow the following line items were only on the Buena Vista site of the proposal. A 10-foot wall costing $446,000. Soil stabilization of $937,000. Imported soil of $266,000. Erosion control of $87,000, and road improvements of $116,000. Are none of these items needed for the Georgia Avenue site? Will there be no cost for road improvements? I've been told that just putting up a simple traffic light in a congested area costs about $200,000. Are we saying none is required up there? No new traffic lights to help route the increases and changes in traffic patterns? Is it possible that JLA, having a vested business interest in this project and maintaining good relations with the city, were biased in their cost analysis towards the property the city has always preferred? And I'll hold up the document. It's highlighted in yellow. I don't want you to do an eye test. You surely have the same presentation that I got it from. Okay.
Yes, we do.
After the presentation, citizens were allowed to speak and provided three or perhaps many more additional options. One option was the use of the community center property. Another was the almost vacant MEDEC building, of which 30,000 square feet of office space is available on the first floor. JLA mentioned an issue of a culvert pipe on the community center property, but admitted they had not studied the property occupying and for only a public safety facility. It had been deemed previously too small to house both public safety and the fire station. The current city administrator said he had dismissed the MEDEC building from consideration because he disliked renting. I heard a little different tonight, but that was the excuse at one time. Now, I think he also said tonight that it's been restricted to two properties, and I'll ask the simple question, why? If there's a more reasonable choice, wouldn't we do that? In fact, we sit here in City Hall, which is rented. 30,000 square feet of the MEDEC building is available now without a year-long build. It is attached to a $12 million garage. We have not been told how long MEDEC's lease is, but we have all seen the practically empty garage. Hopefully, when we sign the contract to build the $12 million garage, we also got some commitment from the investor that he's going to stay a while because his population is shrinking.
Ms. Lardy, I've let you're going way over, and I don't mind, but we're
Another
not
half
talking
a
about
page.
Riverside Village, so don't bring that in.
Okay.
Finish up the MEDAC and continue with this property if you don't mind.
The city is committing $16 million to build a new public safety facility, but a simple calculation that I can make projects a $5 million savings from using the MEDAC building. Certainly, MEDAC is not the only place a public safety facility is located, but our city leaders owe the taxpayers a study of more than two sites by an unbiased firm. Although they cannot develop the 7 Gables property as currently zoned, the city should not throw good money after bad. Instead, they should reimburse Aiken County for $850,000 of capital project sales tax and set aside the parcels for further use. How about a historic park? creating the destination tourism to which this city aspires. Surely, with true community involvement, creative minds, and collective fundraising efforts, it can birth the showcases our unique history, such as Freemanstown after the Civil War, a former Hollywood of the East, or as the hometown of a lauded writer. As you deliberate tonight, think back to the 7-0 vote and the 5-0 vote against rezoning, and ask yourself, what, if anything, has changed? Has the historic district changed? No. Has the neighborhood preservation overlay changed? No. The only thing that has changed was the fire station request that is now replaced by a public safety facility. Please do not say, well, we've been discussing this location for too long, so let's go ahead with rezoning so we can move on. Once the historic district is destroyed, it's gone forever. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir, thank you. Who's next?
Sharon, do you need my name?
If you'll give your name and address for the record, please, sir, when you come down.
Sharon, Joe Holt, 1117 George Avenue. Mayor, Council, I've been silent on this issue for quite a while, during the previous administration as well as this
Can
one.
you, one sec, can you make sure his microphone, speak in the microphone, Joe, Dr. Holt?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just speak into the microphone because we
Oh, I
want
gotta
everybody
stand
back
right-
there and on live.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Now you're talking.
When I acquired Pine Heights, it was to be my single-family home. There were a lot of ideas that came up from not city council, planning and zoning. Like, Joe, you need a parking lot in the back because we don't want to park cars on George Avenue or Sanders Avenue. Well, that became an additional $27,000 expense that was made. It's there. Jason and Jared used it for a skateboard ramp and used it for basketball. Became the neighborhood basketball court. That neighborhood is important to me. I drive by the Flight House quite often, and it's hard to see because of the jungle and the vegetation. It looks like a place that's been severely neglected. Mine was too when I first started. I remember Richard Harmon sticking a note on the door saying you can't enter until the repairs are made. And we had to rewire it, replumb it, re-roof it, the whole 9 yards. So yes, it's been how would you say, a labor of love. Part of the love is giving back to the city as historical building. I see Flythe being the next opportunity to do that. I'm not as worried about the property as much as the property surrounding the Flythe building. And I think that's been my comment openly, is that needs to be attended to, whether it be the historical group or who. It needs to be attended to, because if not, it's going to continue to be robbed and pilfered and destroyed. Pat, I'm reminded of First Baptist. When I was on the staff and we were doing 2 Sunday schools for the first time, I got a call from a friend of mine named Orville Morris. And Orville told me at the point, you need to leave town. You need to get in a car, drive away, because they're coming to get you. This town does not like change. No matter what it is, it fights change. Sometimes change can be good. Somebody complimented me the other day and said, your building's looking nice. You should see me. Sometimes I'm glad OSHA doesn't show up when I'm climbing a ladder and trying to paint. So I say to you that I'm in support of parceling out the Flythe unit and letting that be historically developed, because it needs to be. That's part of our history. The other part of it is a part of our memories. I remember Seven Gables. I remember going to eat there quite often. I miss it. But it's gone. It can't come back. So I would encourage City Council to move forward, protect the Flythe, I'm one of the neighbors that just lives around the corner from it. And I would support you in that action. And I have been silent for long enough that I needed to come forward and say, this is what I think and how I feel.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Who's next? Come on now. You used to be on this side.
Oh, okay.
Speaking in the mic, please, Jimmy.
James Adams, 201 East Martintown Road, North Augusta. And I come here in protest of the rezoning to public service because I feel that is an inappropriate place for the facility to be relocated. Public safety needs a new facility, no question about that. But I am kind of curious, and I was incapacitated with a medical situation for the last few weeks, and I haven't really paid attention to what went on. But I feel like that property is just vital to representing North Augusta from its heritage. So as I said last Thursday night, we were adjacent. That property is adjacent to the man that owned all of North Augusta at one time, and his house is being preserved, thank goodness, by his family. But the current property, in my opinion, should be zoned either residential. I'll stay with 14, that's good enough, because I think it's just an unbridled opportunity to make something really great at North Augusta. Our public safety, 95% of their time is mobility, being able to move. And Georgia Avenue has it's a treacherous turn right there at the intersection with Observatory and Butler Avenue, and I feel that's a detriment to it. But the location and the history of North Augusta over the 100 years. So if anybody would ever address the triangle in front of it between Butler Avenue and Martintown and Georgia, but from an age standpoint, can remember in 1970 parking my car on Butler Avenue and looking across the river and watching Augusta burn when they had the riot situation. That was unfortunate. But the people, there's some there's some ownership concerns about it, but things like that could be rectified. And I just feel like the opportunity to bring, I'm not a real estate person, but I am of the opinion that given an opportunity and encouragement that some investor could find a way to really make that a tax producing instead of tax using facility or utilization of property. Additionally, there's a park right across the street across Georgia Avenue at Summerhill Road. And now we have the dilemma of what are we going to do with those two TV antennas that stand there rooted in the ground, and nobody's using either one of them. So that's something City ought to look at, seeing if we couldn't improve that. That, to me, would be a great location for what we want to do. But I think taking away the property, the Flythe property and the old 7 Gables property for use as public safety is going to be with us forever. We can't survive without them. So I'm a big supporter of public safety, but I just think we should be able to find another alternative position. And I'd ask each one of you, how many of y'all had something to do with seeking out the property? You pay somebody else to do that kind of stuff, and then you vote on it. So my recommendation would be is to leave it in a residential state seek out doing something with a triangle and make something happen up there of a residential nature rather than just use it for a public service building that can be located most anywhere within our 21-mile radius, but we want it in a prominent place. But I think those are available, and just wonder how many people, how precise the study was versus just let's take the easy alternative because we bought the property. In fact, I voted for it. I was a member of council at the time, and I voted for both times to buy it so that the city would have an appropriate use of it, depending on civic responsibility to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Who else? Come on now. We need to put some railings. I just dawned on me now I've been mayor here. You know, I can't believe when you put railings down those steps when we built this. We may need to consider that. Put that in the budget, Mr. Clifford.
It wouldn't hurt.
We need to look into that. Those are dangerous
Wouldn't
steps.
hurt. I am not actually here as myself. I am here as Ken Powell.
But will you tell us who you are, though,
I
even though you're
am.
not going to speak for yourself? And your address, please.
Yes, Sharon Reed, 1942 Bolin Road, North Augusta.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So Mr. Powell, Mr. Ken Powell, got a chance to speak at the zoning commission. And he is out of town. He lives at 320 Clay Street in North Augusta. You all know Ken.
Yep.
Basically, I would say he would agree with a lot of what Jimmy said. One of his points is that you've got 4.45 acres out of over 13,000 acres that this town consists of. And can it be that our only option, our only best option for public safety, which is needed, everybody agrees, is our one and only historic district? And he did send me a copy of the letter that he referenced at the Planning Commission, which is from the State Historic Preservation Office, Archives and History, signed by a Brad Souls, and it was a letter dated May 31st, 2018. I'm writing, and it's concerning 1220 and 1220 and a half Georgia Avenue. I'm writing to confirm to you that the above referenced properties are contributing properties in the Georgia Avenue, Butler Avenue Historic District that was listed in the National Register of Historic Places on April 5th, 1984. That is Brad Sauls with Archives and History. So around that time actually, before that time, that letter of response confirming that the property was in the National Historic Register. The property was looted, but they still considered it valuable and historic. And I understand and appreciate that, and I think Ken does too, that you guys are trying to do both. I personally don't think that that's possible. I don't think it's possible to do something that honors the historic area and gives what we need, especially in terms of a court building. Because what I anticipate, seeing the drawing and knowing how many parking spaces there are, is that, and talking about the need to expand, is that you will have some historic buildings and nothing else except for pavement and city business. And I do agree with Jimmy that there's got to be a better use than that, and there's got to be a way to bring in not tax money, some revenue, and make this unique. Ken believes, and I agree, that Be great if the city could pay back that $850,000, which was the capital project sales tax 3 funds. He has noted that there is no timeline to do so, but apparently that could be done. I believe that the charter that you have given our city director, our city administrator, is in a sense a false charter. I believe that came from maybe council to just locate this facility on one of 2 pieces of property that the city owns that's big enough. I would call that a false charter, and I would not say that it's what most citizens who feel very passionately would agree with. I would ask you, as Ken says, in his document, to ask yourselves if you feel like all options have been exhausted, or if they have only been investigated to support the narrative that is preferred. Because the people who did the valuation is the same engineering firm. First of all, they said that JLA, Johnson, Lashober, and Associates, said that the historic properties should be raised. So they have no value on those properties. But second of all, they do have a vested interest, I would say, of keeping good business relations with the city. They stated the properties had no historical value, and they stated this after that letter of confirmation that we were on the National Registry came. We need a public safety building. I'm not sure that we need one that is that big and that strip mall looking. It's not real impressive to me. But basically we have started off this process through a number of things that were not really wise decisions. An internal investigation that everybody knows about. And I don't think that we should at this point be pragmatic and say, we're this committed, let's go ahead and do it. I don't think that that's what we should do. I don't think that that's what most of the citizens want to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Who's next? Be careful coming down.
My name's Mike Reed, 1942 Bolin Road, North Augusta. That was my better half. She's much prettier, probably better spoken than I as well.
Mike, do me a favor.
You can reward me later, honey.
Mike, what I need to do, make sure you speak into that microphone, and you don't have to worry about trying to
Okay.
look at Jim and everybody.
Into
Just
the
speak in
mic.
microphone.
Can you hear
That's
me
what's
now?
going. Perfect.
All right. This thing's
Make it, you're tall. Get it up high for you.
I'm a little taller than the way it's set. Okay. I don't have a dog in this fight as to, living near where the proposed facility is going, but I can only imagine how I would feel if I did live in that area in a historic site and this was being proposed. So I'm kind of here for the underdog. I'm also, I have questions when we have a public service commission or the commission that keeps voting not to put this area, not to put this facility at that site, and we want to ignore that. Why do we have one? I mean, let's just put them out of a job. I mean, because in essence, that's what it appears that the council's doing if they move forward with that. Historically, there's a lot of questions behind that property, the way it was treated, the way it was vandalized under the city's watch, no investigation being done, floors being taken out. Todd Glover at one point was questioned about some of this. He did an investigation rather than bringing law enforcement in, to my understanding. He also stated that there was property returned. They were able to get property and they had inventoried it. I don't know that anybody has ever seen this property other than Todd Glover. That makes me question a bit. I wanted to read you a piece that Richard Fletcher had written and posted in North Augusta 2020. I'm sure y'all are familiar with that. Many of you read that. Two wrongs don't make a right. Maybe you remember the Monday night back in 2016 when City Council voted to spend $850,000 on the 7 Gables flight property. Until the agenda item was introduced by the mayor, no one outside city officials knew the city planned to purchase the 2 high-priced property in a national register of historic places district, half of which was zoned for residential use, all of which was protected by a neighborhood preservation overlay zone. In my opinion, this was by design to ensure neighboring property owners would not show up at the meeting to interfere with the city's plans. No city council member thought to ask if neighboring property owners were informed or might have an opinion. City Council was told that an extensive site selection search had been conducted, and the 7 Gables flight property was the best 4 acres out of 21 square miles for building new public safety headquarters in Station 1. That, to me, on the face of it, doesn't make any sense at all. I can't imagine that out of 21 square miles that we can't find a site that would be better suited for that facility. City Council was told by city officials that the property would not have to be rezoned. City Council was told the top of the hill site was best because fire trucks cannot carry loads of water uphill fast enough. City Council was told that the city's ISO rating would improve with a more central Station 1. City Council was told that the historic structures on the property were held together by termite spit. Well, you know, after it's been vandalized and all sorts of historic items have been taken out, maybe that's true to some extent. I don't know. City Council was even given a report from a consultant that stated the 2 historic two-door revival structures on the property built around 1903 did not contribute to the historic character of the Butler Avenue Historic District, despite being specifically listed in the National Register list of contributing properties. In short, members of City Council were fed a rail car load of horse crap from city administration. Todd Glover, city administrator at the time, was acquainted with Charles Johnson of Johnson Rental Properties, who bought the 7 Gables property and sold it about a year and a half later at a 66% profit. Glover and Johnson worked together as volunteers on the scoring team during the Master Tournament, according to sources familiar with the tournament. Freedom of Information Act documents of emails between Glover and Johnson include mention of a bourbon club, and Todd's Bourbon Club was not a well-kept secret.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not stopping you, but that really is irrelevant about a
Okay.
conversation between Todd Glover, who's no longer city administrator. So if you would just keep it to your concern and what Richard has put in there about the Flythe property, I would appreciate it, sir. Just for
Okay.
time, since we're way over 5 minutes, but I
How
wanted to
about
give you
that?
that opportunity.
How about that? I'll skip that part.
Good.
Well, I'll not read any more of that, and just get back to what I had previously already stated. To my understanding, Mr. Mayor Williams, Eric Presnell, and Kevin Toole, before the last election, y'all had been against us. And now you kind of flipped and you're for it. And I'm wondering what sort of information that you were provided that the citizens of North Augusta don't have that would make you come to that decision.
I'll be glad to explain once,
That
at
would
my
be
end.
We're going to
anyway.
respond. Everybody have time.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. But yeah, that I'm interested in the answer to that because it seemed like in a very short period of time that flipped. So if
Okay.
y'all would answer that, I would
We
appreciate
are
it.
right now. We will get to it at the
Okay.
end. Thank you.
That's all
Appreciate
I've
it.
got.
All right, great. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate it, Mr. Reed. All right, who we got next? Can you help him over that? You can hold it if you want.
Thank you.
And will you state your name for the record, please?
Nancy Gage. I'm representing Bill Scott. He asked me to what am I going to say? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Due to the illness of his wife, he's not able to be here tonight. He asked me to serve. I do want to go on record as opposing the public safety building on the Flythe property. In 1984, I built my house next to the property of Mr. and Mrs. Flythe. I never dreamed that anyone would ever think of putting a public safety building there, since it was an established older neighborhood. There are numerous reasons for not building on this property. Number one, rezoning change in an established neighborhood. Number two, a blind curve. Lights will not prevent accidents. Number three, destroying the peace of our neighborhood. Number four, the fact that this is the last piece of historic land in the city and is connected to the founders of North Augusta. Once it is gone, it can never be replaced. If you think about it, it's an odd place to put a public safety building, no matter how you dress it up. When you destroy your history, you destroy your roots. This is happening all over America, and I plead with you not to let it happen here. In closing, I want to say that I fully support the police department. I do not think there is a better department anywhere in the country. They deserve a new building, but not on the Flythe property. I want to thank all of you for giving me your time to help our city.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Who else? Come on down. Who else? Come on down. I'm most apprehensive I've seen. Goodness gracious.
Oh. Hello, my name is Mike Hitchler. I live at 1300 George Avenue on the corner across from the property in question. Got to say that the only thing in life that is constant is change. Change is going to come to this property no matter what. In fact, change this morning was we almost wiped out a citizen on Observatory Avenue because of a 6-inch branch that fell off around 8 o'clock this morning that I had to tow off. So something needs to be done there. We've been debating this for six years almost. And I feel like this is what we say in engineering is paralysis by analysis. It keeps coming back. We need to make a decision. I mean, I'm tired of discussing it, and I don't think putting this off is going to solve anything. I was adamantly against it 3 years ago because when we were consolidate fire department and police department and public safety and court, that was too much we were loading in there. But that meant that we had to destroy the Flythe properties, and also that the noise zones were going to be a real challenge to put in to protect the Star of Edgefields and other properties. So I was adamantly against it. But with the splitting of the property, because I think the decision that was made 2.5 years ago was the right one, is now we have the opportunity to do it right. So I'd rather really work with the city at this point to get the job done right. And when I say work with the city, I want to support it as long as we deal with 3 key attributes associated with the property. The first one is the historic district is very important. It has very important architecture, Greek Revival, Victorian, and Italianate. The architects have got to pay tribute to that as part of the new buildings. They've started on that path. I think we have a ways to go with that. The second thing is that the overlay was built recognizing that this was a multi-use neighborhood, both commercial properties that were low impact like the Posey Funeral Home and Communigraphics, as well as the residences. There's a whole list of attributes. I know we can't meet all of those attributes, but it really needs to be put under consideration to meet as much of that as we can, and at least when we go into operation, that the police department knows to try to minimize the amount of noise after dark. And I'm sure there are ways to do that without impeding their function. The final aspect is that we heard the traffic study, and I don't really believe that it's going to have that little of an impact with the way it's currently laid out, with the exits being both on the Observatory and the Butler Avenue side. George Avenue is busy, but it is a 5-lane highway at this point. There is a turning lane that can be put in there. There are already state-approved cuts that are made into the property on George Avenue for an entrance and an exit that would tend to minimize the amount of additional traffic associated with these facilities during operation. I just want to say, I think there are ways that we can work together. I support it, but I'm just tired of talking about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Great. Who else? Come on down, Steve.
Stephen Bryant, 129 Butler Avenue. I'm speaking on behalf of 2 or 3 of my neighbors, LaFavors and the Bartons. I've just got 2 pages here. As you know, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended against rezoning of 7 Gables property. This is the second time they rendered a unanimous decision against it. I suspect that maybe you've only read the final conclusion from the Planning Commission's meeting, and maybe many in the audience and that are listening haven't seen it or weren't there. I listened to it again. It was very hard to hear some of the things, but these are key points I'd like to bring up. These are all quotes. Commissioner Watts,
And what year was this? Is the planning commission? This was the planning commission meeting Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted, I missed the date. Thank you.
Even though the planning commission recommended 7-0 against changing the ordinance to allow the city to avoid the neighborhood preservation overlay, but council voted to approve it anyway. Doesn't think it makes a difference on how we vote. The whole process has been an eyesore. If not criminal, close to it. Very disappointed. We are subjected to having to make a decision we should never have had to make. Lots of better uses for the property. Not totally given the up and up on the figures. Feel like the company that was hired to do the project, the analysis was botched, and I resent the fact that being on the planning commission and have to go through what we've gone through. I don't feel like we've been totally given the facts. The earthwork numbers are a little bit asinine. Based on these comments by Commissioner Watts, I believe the city administrator should look into the North Augusta Development Code to see if Article 5.1.6.2 applies to this situation. Grounds for revocation based on the intentional provision of material misleading information by the applicant. Commissioner Carter then spoke and stated he agrees for the need for a new police station, as does everybody else in the room. The main concern was traffic and what was going on to happen on that hill with a police station there. That is still a major concern. Is the city concerned at all about any litigation that may take place from ones that we did not approve based on a similar situation, i.e. the one down the street about 2 blocks away? I'm sure that they would be definitely excited to know that we approved something that we denied them within a reasonable distance. I'm for a new police station. I am not for a new police station at this location. Commissioner Key, I evaluate on the highest and best use and economic benefit. We have boundaries, we have guidelines, and we have rules. The city did not make their case. The traffic study did not take into consideration visitors and people coming into the courthouse. What was presented to the Planning Commission was that there would be 32 cars a day going down Butler Avenue. This is one of 3 books. It's a set. It is from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's a 7th edition, but I used the 10th edition online version. There would be closer to 1,000 cars per day as opposed to 32. There are currently 16,000 cars a day that go down Georgia Avenue and 22,000 that go down Martintown Road, and there's 452 cars that go down Butler Avenue, and most of them run the stop sign. A municipal building can generate other businesses, and this does not seem like it will accomplish that. A need to listen to what other cities are doing, and other cities are moving them to urban areas so they can perpetuate other businesses. Commissioner Key also stated that the plan submitted for the facade, the building design was not inspiring. He also stated that based on the training that they receive as planning commissioners, the city did not provide that third leg, referring to the criteria for good development practices. Now, at a study session in November 2017, some questions were asked of council regarding this new municipal project. 1, will the property have to be rezoned? To which the city attorney responded, and I'm quoting, no, the city can place this building anywhere in any zoning district, but you then have to comply with the zoning requirements of that area. We do not need a rezoning to put these buildings there, unquote. That was not accurate, and Mr. Zier did clarify several months later that he was not aware at the time he made the statement that the state law required rezoning for P properties was passed a year or so prior. Another question asked was, this is in the neighborhood preservation overlay and would have to comply with the regulation, and it would have to comply with the regulations of the neighborhood preservation overlay. City attorney answered the question and said, quote, there would be compliance with those, unquote. So if that was true, then why did council pass an ordinance to exempt itself from those requirements? No citizen in that meeting was opposed to the project. It was going to comply with the regulations currently in place. This location has been plagued with ill-advised decisions, secret meetings, and subversion of the rules, regulations, and ordinances. The construction cost and vehicular data for this location has been skewed and misleading on purpose to direct your decision back to this property and away from more suitable locations. I do not understand why the city has pushed so hard for a location that is clearly not the best location, and that many of you have stated as such. So now, why is it the right location? The only thing I keep hearing is that this has taken too long to decide, and we need a location now. Is that the criteria by which we are going to base the decision? We're not going to consider the experience and training of the planning commissioners and the reasoning for unanimously recommending not to approve twice. They stated that what they thought would be inspiring and beneficial to the development of the city. Mayor Williams, as the chairman of the planning commission, you stated to me, the city does not care about the comprehensive plan, the neighborhood overlay zoning and ordinances, and didn't see why the planning commission should hold up the project, referring to the fire station. Do you still stand by that statement now that you are mayor? Because in the original rezoning of this property in 2017, as a planning commissioner, you stated that this district should be preserved. In a campaign video, you quoted what James U. Jackson's father said 150 years ago to his son as a young boy as to why no one had developed the land on the hill. He said to him, "No one has had the vision, my son." It's 150 years from that point in time, but it would still hold true today. No one had the vision if this is placed in a location without potential. Councilman Presnell, you stated on September 12, 2021, this is something that will be in our city for the next 50, 60, maybe 100 years. If that's the case, don't you think it would be better suited to a location for the potential to grow for the next 50 to 100 years? As Commissioner Watts suggested in the past, that Exit 1 to be the gateway into the city. Projects of this nature spur development around them, just like they did in Columbia County. When you were campaigning, your second mission statement of your election campaign was historic overlay to remain in place and to preserve our downtown. Councilman Toole, you've stated on your website when you ran for city council, we do not have to lower our standards excuse me, in order to make it easier to do business in North Augusta. But those standards must be based in common sense, be user-friendly, and support the comprehensive plan in our city. I concur. But isn't that what the city did when it voted to exempt itself from the rules and regulations of the overlay to lower the standards? I know you didn't vote for that measure, nor did Eric. But voting for a project that requires utilization of that exemption equates to the same. I specifically mention your three campaigns because of the bold promises, optimism, and visions you laid out. Councilman Toole and Presnell, you both stated prior to your election that the facility should not be located at the 7 Gables and that the historic district was too important. Has that changed? Is the historic district no longer too important? Because the only reason I've heard from everyone on council is that the city is tired of waiting and that this project needs to be approved. Couldn't we all say that about traffic lights and crosswalk signals? But in the end, would we not ultimately regret that decision? There are many design issues on this property that have not been thoroughly evaluated. Even the person presenting the traffic information to the Planning Commission stated it was just some rough numbers to give an idea. But based on the IT manual that I have here, the numbers aren't even close. South Carolina Department of Transportation requirements for the site distance and driveway spacing may prove problematic, if not unpermittable. The city has been so focused on getting this facility that they have lost vision for the potential that could come from this project. If this ends up being the location, you will have accomplished just one thing, placing the headquarters and the courthouse on a 4-acre infill parcel, which many of you have previously stated was not the right location. Is this the best we can come up for this project, a default location? How does that inspire placemaking and community development around it? Where is the vision to create a town center that can work toward the mayor's goal of a tourist destination? Think about all the potential and efficiency if this were to be built near Exit 1 at I-20 with space to add for the future fire station that you should currently be looking to site. Now is the time for vision, for leadership, to see the potential for a new area of the city to develop. We need you to have that vision, one that results in a positive direction both in preserving the historic district and a direction of development that will benefit all the city. I'm not just asking you to consider the true potential from this project. I'm just asking you to consider the true potential from this project and to stand by your promises and statements you made to us in the past. Promises made should be promises kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else we got? Come on now. Going once. Twice. Okay. Thank you all. Before, I'm going to let everybody go around because I know there's a number of folks who have been challenged, and I think everybody needs to there's been some questions been asked. I'm going to let everybody in the council respond if they want to. There's just a couple things, just broad base I want to, and I'm going to respond at the very end, but there's just a couple points broad base that kept coming up that I do want to give some clarification to. Mr. Beard, you talked about the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission in general is a recommending body. That's the nature of it. Unfortunately, I was on the Planning Commission, and I agree with everybody. At times, it's frustrating. A big role of the Planning Commission is the comprehensive plan. That's the long-term strategy and planning. So, unfortunately, what the Planning Commission can approve is not as vast as people would think. So I just wanted to clarify that because you asked what does a planning commission. It basically is a recommending body, and one of its major goals is the work on the comprehensive plan, which should be the strategy moving forward. So I just want to clarify that for you. Again, this did not get brought up in the planning commission, but Todd Glover, the previous administrator, back, and you can go back and look at the minutes in the May 2018 meeting, he went over 13 properties that the city had reviewed in depth on the screen. There was a handout about it. So there's been a lot of misunderstanding that I came up last time about the property. So the city did go over 13 properties originally, and quite frankly, most of those properties are no longer viable. But that did happen, so there's been misstatements about that. So I just want to clarify that. So Planning Commission back in 2018 did hear about the 13 properties. So I just want to make that thing. The second thing, and I do thank Mr. Lardy he's one of the first people that have clarified this, we don't have a true historic district. Now, we have 17 properties on the National Historic Register, absolutely. And they are in that area, but it's not in a true historical district because there is no code in the city that controls what can or cannot be built on it, near or beside it. You can have something on the National Register, but the local municipality has to have a code to control the zoning around those properties. The city of North Augusta has nothing like that. What we do have, and I think Mr. Hitchler, we have an overlay code. And quite frankly, that's the extent that we have of restriction to enforce anything on historic districts. So just clarification, because it gets used a lot. And I just want people to know we don't have a true historic district. We have, as far as that can be enforced by code in North Augusta, we have an overlay code. So I just want to make that. That's the third. The last thing is a statement about there's no timeline about using the property. Well, the issue is, yes, there's not a timeline, my understanding, but if we're not going to build on it, we're not going to keep it there because we do have to pay back that loan as well as if we're able to sell it for more, then that's proceeds we can use in what we're doing. So it would be not a good sense for the city to hold on to a piece of property which legally we cannot. So I just we don't have to do something tomorrow, but if we don't build on that property, we will not be able just to maintain that property for the next 20 years, okay? We just aren't going to do that. So those are just 4 general comments that were brought up. I just want to give some clarification. So at this point, what I'm going to do is discussion from council, and why don't we just, if it's okay, we'll just start from like we do our roll call. If that's okay with y'all, I'm going to let Mr. Presnell go first. Is that okay with everybody? And Mr. Presnell, if you want to go, it's all yours.
Okay. Mr. Reed, you are incorrect. You are correct in that, yeah, I would like to see something better there. I mean, I did campaign on that. I still believe that. However, once you get into this, the gist of this, for everybody out there now and the people listening, because I hear it all the time, I want the 7 Gables rebuilt. I miss it too. 2008 was a terrible day. It was a beautiful building. It burned down. Well, due to the overlays, that building could never be rebuilt on that property. It just can't. No, it's true. I see it cannot be over 3,000 square feet. The 7 Gables property was 8 or 9, if I remember correctly. It also could not operate due to the overlays as a restaurant, because anything in the overlay has to close by 7 o'clock p.m. So, my fear is with in regards to what you were saying, Mr. Reed, yes, I'd love to keep our Georgia Avenue, Carolina, West, East Avenue, a lot of these areas. I would love to keep it nice looking. You ride down the road, you don't want something that jumps out and sticks out like a sore thumb. We don't want it to turn into Columbia County when you go down, or Richmond County when you're going down Washington Road. You see Butler buildings everywhere. Do I want to see that? Absolutely not. Now, the big thing is the only way I think a lot of those are going away, any of those historic homes, is due to fire. I don't see it profitably viable for a developer to come in and buy, you've got some OC property pretty much all the way down Georgia Avenue. I don't see somebody buying up swaths of it to build something other than a house, but I believe that's the use of that. So the only way that any of those properties are gone is in the case of fire. There's currently, and again, with the overlays, I'm not so sure that you can dictate what kind of architecture goes in there. I could be wrong, but somebody could do a contemporary home on any of those properties up there that sticks out like a sore thumb. Yes, I would love to keep that. So all that being said, let's fast forward. Yes, I do agree that, maybe something better could go there. But we fast forward today. I've been on council 2.5, almost 3 years now. This was really one of the first things that we discussed coming into council, and you get up to speed. What Mayor Williams was saying about Todd Glover, I think that was in 2018, laying out to the Planning Commission all the different sites. He did a public session right back here and explained all of that again. The triangle piece, the R14 right there at Georgia Avenue, Martintown Road, is pretty hilly, so it presents some challenges. And also, if I remember correctly, there were several heirs, and not all of them were together on selling it. So that property was considered. The property right down beside Lidl, if y'all are familiar with that, there's a big swath there. That was also considered, but it was bought up before we could buy it. I do remember the last time we talked about this, there was a piece of property that popped up behind Roland Ford Funeral Home. It had issues in its own in that there was no right-of-way on the Martintown Road, okay? That's come up. Back when it was voted on to put the public safety headquarters and the fire station up on the Fife property, I did vote against it because, I still felt like that this could be something better. And, I believe Mr. Smith came up, offered his property. That was a good compromise. So it's like, great, let's at least get the fire station going on this property, and we can find somewhere else to put headquarters. We have property that we already own right down here on, I guess that's Riverside Boulevard and Buena Vista, whatever it's called there. That was already city-owned. Well, it's presented some challenges. There's a right-of-way through it. There's many things to me that I just see that being a bad thing. If the property beside it is ever developed, we're going to lose half of our parking due to a right-of-way that runs right through the property that we already own. So that takes away half your property. It does not give you the room to expand. So that was the big, and then of course the retaining walls and the soil stabilization. Now, if you've ever looked at that, it's uphill. From our property, it's basically uphill. So that site presents some challenges. Again, the community center was brought up. I am not an engineer. However, we have engineers and building people that work with the city to advise us of those things. And yes, there's a 14-inch storm drain or something running right under the property that we could not, build on that property. On top of that, you have the cost to tear down all the grading, not to mention the time and design. It's just cost not effective. I've heard several things about the MEDAC building. Sounds like a good plan in theory, but I still believe the cost to build out would be in the $7 to $9 million range, which saves us a chunk of change. The bigger issue I have is then we have an infinite amount of rent payments. And then we don't own the building. What do we do if the owner decides, I'm not renewing your lease, or I'm going to sell it to you at an exorbitant rate? I can't buy that. I don't think that is a good use of that. So, fast forward to where we are today. I mean, I really wish something else could be there, but we have no controls. If we don't put a public safety building there, in my opinion, worse things could come there. Now, I've heard a lot of people saying that, oh, public safety in historic districts. Well, I took a look, and you're willing to Google as well. Savannah, Charleston, Arlington, Virginia, just to name a few, all have their police headquarters in their historic districts. Now, if this does pass, I would tax it upon myself. Let's make it where it blends in, back to you don't want something sticking out like a sore thumb. And the other thing, I'll bring a few other things that I've seen and out there on social media. First of all, the old Food Line property is not for sale. It has never been. The Christian radio station or TV station owns it. They are not willing to sell. That was another one of the properties I believe that was looked at. I've heard Channel 12. Well, if y'all look and see, there's two big antennas there. Now, I'm not sure if they're still in use or not, but even if they weren't, the cost would be many millions of dollars to dismantle those to be able to do what we need to do. Again, it's just not cost prohibitive. I guess if we had a unlimited budget, we could build it wherever we wanted. That would hopefully please everybody, but unfortunately we don't. That was one thing when we were elected. We're elected to watch out for the taxpayers' money and hopefully keep our taxes low. We own this property, and I've heard a few people say, well, the Planning Commission said, yes, only these two properties. Well, yes, because at this point we would have to sell, try to find another one, and, I've been quoted in a news article that I did that they're not making any more land. There's no more land being made. We could locate it out of the city of the center of the city. Yes, you could go out past exit 1. You could go here, there, and everywhere. But just like when we looked at all of the fire station and the coverage circles, you get it off too far. I would think the public safety is the same thing. So it's reluctant, and we don't live in a perfect world. But unfortunately, I mean, we're to the point where I don't see without spending, if we had an unlimited budget, we could go wherever, but we don't have that. So yes, unfortunately, I did say one thing, and now after everything that I've seen, I am having to go the other way, because I just feel like anything else that we do to prolong this, again, I've been on council 2.5 years. This idea has been going on 10, 15. I mean, at some point we have got to say, let's get started. And our officers deserve way better. I talked to a lot of them, the ones that dropped my council packets off. I talked to them, and that's the biggest thing. Molding the building. Again, I can't help what happened with previous councils, previous mayors, anything. But I just feel like now is the time that we need to move on. And again, it's reluctantly that I do say here, but it's because of those reasons. I just don't see any better alternative that does not cost, one, more money, or two, extend how long it's going to take to get our officers the facility they need.
Thank you. Mr. McGee? Yeah, let's go around. Is that all right with you?
That's perfectly fine. I sit here and try to go back and remember the timeline of things that have gone on since I've been on council regarding this issue. Mayor just explained that it wasn't necessarily a historic district. We have overlay issues for this area. And that's one of the concerns I've had along the way. It's been brought to my attention. And then Eric did a great job talking about some of the history about the different properties that we have looked at, because it's been a lot. It's been a long time that we discussed this. I've said my piece on this before. I believe that this is the viable location for us. I haven't changed. I did vote to move the separation of the fire station and the headquarters so we could try to come up with a reasonable compromise to relocate that. So that made this property more viable for the headquarters. Unfortunately, we learned that Buena Vista is not financially really viable for us. And this property is where it's been looked at for many years. I believe before I ever got on council, 20 years ago, there's a drawing and a map that indicates that this is a potential location for a headquarters or fire station 20 years ago. I'm 50, so that was a long time ago. So it's been discussed for a long time. We are here to make a decision to change the zoning that would accommodate what the city needs to do. And I hate that the planning commission was faced with having to be presented the way it was for them, and that they had to, their job is tasked for recommendation, like the mayor said, and they're supposed to look at the black and the white and make a recommendation off of that. And then our job is to then take it from there. And I've had many people talk to me on both sides of the issue. And we do listen. I do hear. I do read. I do watch. I have conversations with people all the time about all kinds of issues, from doggy safety to public safety, or everything in between. But, I just feel that this is our best location and option. I feel that public use of this property, rezoning it to public use, is what really gives it an opportunity to maintain as much of a historic designation or overlay designation that we feasibly can think of at this point in the game. And I think that we create a historic building when we build it. This building here that we're sitting in is going to be a historic building 100 years from now. And then there'll be a bunch of people discussing, well, we're going to tear it down and build something else. And that will happen about 100 years from now. And hopefully that this fire station, I will tell the public and say it publicly that I'm committed to trying to make sure that when we do some architectural reviews and fine tune this, that I would like for it to be as pleasantly aesthetic to what can be done for the area. I'm committed to doing that. I've always said that. If people know me, I've worked on many historic projects, so I have an eye for it. I have a feel for it. I have a heart for it. I believe in it, but this is a project that the city needs to move forward on. Thank you.
All righty. Well, of course, I've been for the 7 Gable property the whole way through. I voted against building the fire station on Martintown Road. I think our police and fire should be together. I have always said that, and like I said, I've sat in many a meeting, and we've discussed hours after hours the room right behind us. And as the mayor said, we went over, and I couldn't remember, it's 13, but that's what you said, 13 different pieces of property, and that this just came. It wasn't that we were fed a bunch of bull. We looked and we listened to what was presented to us, and we just feel that that piece of property was the right place to go. Now, I'm not going to repeat what David and Eric have said, because you've heard that, but I just feel like it's in the center of town, and I think, like you said, in 50 to 100 years, that will be a historical building. I grew up in North Augusta, have been here my whole life. I grew up in downtown North Augusta. I was near the police station and fire, and when I think of historic North Augusta, that's what I think of, that police station and that fire station today. And I mean, it's probably going to break my heart when it has to be tore down, even though it's in rough shape. But like I said, I feel in my heart, and I pray over these situations, I promise you, and I feel like this is where we should be, up on that place. But I do think, like everybody else, let's work together like we did with Steve and several of them with the fire station. Those neighbors were involved, and let's do that here. Get your neighbor. And Mike, thank you for your words and encouragement. And like I said, I just feel that this is the right decision, and I think as a council person, I'm held accountable to 24,000 citizens. And that what we think is best for those citizens, that's what we do. Now, do we make mistakes? Yes, we do. But I feel like in my heart, this is the right piece of property, and I want us to move on. Let's don't delay. And I know that's been brought up too, that we don't want to rush it, but we're not rushing. It's been 6 to 10 years, and we still going at it. But like I said, I just feel this is the right decision that I'm voting on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Brooks, and let you go.
Thank you. This has been a topic for, while I've been on council, we've gone through 3 mayors, Mayor Jones, Mayor Pettit, and now Mayor Williams. And this has been a hot topic throughout all those tenures. And it's been back and forth on city council, and I like Ms. Carpenter, have always thought this was the best site for a public safety complex. It made it even easier for me when we moved the fire station to East Martintown Road, West Martintown Road, because that freed up more property that can be utilized for the construction of the public safety building and complex. We all have our own circle of friends, and the friends that I run with, we go back and forth on this. Majority of them are in favor of that site. And I truly respect the people who have spoken against this tonight. But I too represent 24,000 people in the city of North Augusta. And I will be voting in favor of this location. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks. Mr. Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had 2.5 pages of stuff typed out that I planned to say, but I'm going to spare all of you that because Eric really said a lot of what I was planning to say anyway. I agree. I don't think that just because it's been a long time means that you make a decision. But it has been a long time, and I go back to 2 years ago when I was considering running for city council. One of the things I did is I went to the different directors of the departments just to learn about the departments, to make sure I understood what they did, and at least from that point of view understood the way the city worked. And I remember going to Chief Thomas's office as part of that, and it was a rainy day, much like it has been today. And they had buckets sitting around to catch the rain dripping through the ceiling 2 years ago. So I imagine those buckets are probably still there, and there are probably more of them. So, yeah, I agree. We don't need to make a rash decision for the sake of making a rash decision. But Capital Project Sales Tax 3, I believe, passed in 2010, and it allocated money to purchase this site. So it's been talked about for years. It's been officially talked about for 11 years now since passing that first ordinance, and at some point we've got to make a decision. So just real quick, we've got 3 choices. One is, Steve, as you said, we can go find another site, exit 1, somewhere like that, and my resistance to that is effectively that starts at least some of this process over. We have done a site selection plan. You may like the way, you may have disagreements with the way that it was carried out, but that process has been done. So to do that again and to further kick that can down the road is just something that, frankly, I'm not willing to consider. So I think it's fair to say that Eric and I were really the spearheads, or part of it. I mean, we really were advocating and actively trying to move towards the compromise that ultimately puts Fire Station 1 on Martintown Road and Public Safety Headquarters on Buena Vista. And I've got some concerns, honestly, with the site work quote. Larry, I heard you in the Development Code meeting, and I respect you. I think you're probably, I give that a lot of credence, that may not be an accurate estimate for that. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. I'm a banker. I'm not a civil engineer or a landscaping architect or anything like that. But it seems high to me too. But the more I think about it, that's not the biggest concern with that site. The biggest concern with that site to me is future forward looking. You know, as has already been stated, we knew from the beginning that it was going to be a chore to properly site the fire station on that site because of the way that it's shaped, because of the easement, you know. But something I really hadn't thought about until it was brought up, till Jim brought it up as part of the feedback on that lot, is there's really absolutely no opportunity to expand on that site. So we're going to put it in a place where we're going to have to pigeonhole a facility, at least to some degree, to put public safety, and however many years it takes for them to outgrow that facility, we're in this position again. We're having to look to either build a new one or build, you know, something else to accommodate that. And I can't get comfortable with that either. I'd love to be comfortable with that because I don't want to be sitting here again, you know, having these conversations and making people angry with me and all that. I do agree with Bob. Most of the people I talk about, honestly, are at least apathetic to the Seven Gables property, if not in favor of it. But, you know, again, that doesn't mean that's how the whole city feels. I guess if I lose the election over this decision, then I'll know that I misread that, and you know, I can live with that. So I kind of go back. You know, I go back to the point that we can continue to talk about it. We can continue to analyze it. We can continue to try to find other spaces for it. I've changed my opinion. You know, Bob and Pat haven't changed their opinion. I think David tried to go with compromise just to get things moving, but his heart was already, as he's already explained, I think many times, was in putting it consolidated. That was what he thought should happen. So I have vacillated back and forth to a degree on it, you know. But one thing that hasn't changed over this process is when I sat in that office with Chief Thomas again 2 years ago, he told me that he felt it needed to be consolidated. They could live if it wasn't, but it needed to be consolidated. And correct me if I'm wrong. They obviously needed a new facility. We all agree with that. There's no dissension with that there. And that the best place for it was up there on that spot for a litany of reasons. And of course, some of that was particular or pertinent specifically to the fire station, but not all of it. I mean, the central location was important. So we've got that. So I've also had to step back and say, okay, we all say we support public safety, and I do support public safety, and I believe everybody in this room and part of what makes the city great is that we support public safety. But how can I support public safety but not support building the site that we all agree they need at the place where they consistently told us that they needed it over the last however many years they've told us that they needed it there? So with all of that being said, we get back to the Georgia Avenue site, to the Flight 7 Gables site, and I share the concerns that a lot of you all have with it. That's why I have voted against it in pretty much every time that it's come up until this point, and I'll go ahead and say I'm going to vote for it. I know that's going to disappoint and probably anger some folks, but I just feel like it's the right thing to do with the information we have and the options that we have available to us under the circumstances. But it does at least offer an opportunity to save the Flythe properties. And, you know, hanging on to that property and trying to turn it into some sort of a public park is just not, I don't think that's financially viable, because that's another $800,000 that's out of the public safety facility, where I'm already concerned that the money we've had allocated to it with current construction costs and everything else may be insufficient anyway. We may have to go into other CPST projects to build it. I've got those concerns to begin with. So that's another $850,000 if we pay it back to the county or do whatever else we have that's not in this facility. So we're taken away from public safety again, which I don't think we need to be doing at this point. You know, I listened to Mr. Hitchler, and I think we're probably in a similar place. Neither of us necessarily want it there. Am I tired of fighting about it and talking about it? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, and maybe that's part of what's feeding into the decision. Maybe so. I'm trying to think it's not. I'm trying to be logical. But that certainly could be part of it. But I do think that it can be done in a way that saves the Flythe properties. In fact, I not only say that, that's the only way I approve it. This is to rezone it. I mean, obviously, this is paving the inevitable path for the public safety station to go there. I mean, we all know that. But, I mean, this is to rezone it. There's still a process to go through from here to there to design it, to do all of those things that we have to do. And I think we can do it in a way that respects the properties around them. Is it going to forever change it? To a degree, yes. Does it have to be? Is it going to change it in maybe some positive and maybe some negative ways? I think there are some ways that we can do so to make it as positive as that sort of a facility can be. Jim has put together a list of where it can comply with the overlay. I think there were 26 or some odd areas in which it could comply with the overlay. There are a number of places where it just can't. You know, as Eric pointed out before, Seven Gables wouldn't comply with the square footage. I think Mr. Hitchler said before, most of the houses in that neighborhood right now would not comply with the 3,000 square foot limitations on the overlay district. So there are going to be some things that a public service facility cannot do to comply with all of the overlay codes. But I do think we have to hold each other accountable, hold administration accountable, you know, however you want to say it, to ensure that we are complying with those that can be complied with. I agree. The rendering that we received is a step in the right direction, but it needs some work. And I would push to continue to do that. I think the neighbors, as I feel like we did a much better job, it wasn't perfect still, but a much better job in involving the neighbors on the fire station. The neighbors have to be, this is a bigger facility and a much more prominent location. The neighbors have to be given a real active role in being involved in the design and in all the facets that go along with this. I think that's something that we have to make sure we do as part of it. And again, the cottage and the stable house, whether we're working an agreement with Historic North Augusta or some other function, that has to be saved, and as much buffer between that space and the other adjoining areas has to be kept. And if we can do that, you know, there unfortunately for those on opposite sides of this, there's really no win-win situation, and I always want to try to find a win-win situation, and I don't know with where we are, with the options we have, where we are, what we've gone through to get here, that there's a win-win situation, because either public safety is going to get the can kicked down the road and have to deal with what they have to deal with for who knows how long while we go through these iterations again, or, you know, the neighbors are going to have a facility built that at least a majority of them are not thrilled with. So having said all that, you know, I am going to support the ordinance, and I know, you know, again, that's not what a lot of y'all want to hear. With where we are, what we need to do, and the options that we have, I think it's the right thing to do, both for public safety and as a city as a whole. I guess that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Mr. Lardy, Dr. Holt, Jimmy Adams, Mr. and Miss Reed, Nancy Gage, I guess she's already left, and of course Mike Hitchler and Steve Bryant. Always good information that is used. I'm going to just tell you my three reasons why I'm in support of it, but before I do that, I guess I do need to give a little explanation, because when people you can frame a lot of things certain ways, and I was asked by three of y'all about my decisions when I was on Planning Commission. And you are correct. In May of 2018, the Planning Commission voted down the first time that it came in front of us 7-0. And Mr. Lardy is correct. There were two reasons why I voted it down. And the one he shared was my secondary reason, and it was, and I will read, and he did, is I did believe the Neighborhood Preservation Overlay District should be preserved in the area, especially given the citizen input into the history of North Augusta. But the first and most important reason why I voted it down was the regret of the city's communication with the public. So the reason I was so adamant on Jim Clifford going to the Planning Commission and asking for a sketch review, because we didn't get that last time, okay? We didn't get citizen input. So everything has been geared around getting the communication to give you a voice. And that was the only time I voted no. The next time that this came up was in April of 2019. The city said, let's come do a text amendment. And that's for the Observatory Martintown Road. We voted that down 4-2. But myself and Bob Clark were the two planning commissioners who voted for that text amendment. And I wish Ken Powell was here, but Ken asked me quite frank, he said, what has changed? And I told Ken, What had changed for me is when I started in 2017, I was new to all this. But by the time we got to April 2019, the number one item in this community that had brought more contentiousness and everything was the overlay code. And as I read and really analyzed and studied the neighborhood preservation overlay, and if you read it, believe me, there are words added in there, but as I studied it and analyzed and realized everything contentiousness that happened, I knew that code needed to be changed. So I voted for that text amendment, which was voted down. But again, educate people. In December 2019, the Planning Commission voted 5-1 to rezone the current, where we're building the fire station, P Public. Okay? So I just wanted to give some clarification on that piece. So here's my reasons. I, along with council, do care about our historical buildings. That's why building the police headquarters on this property is going to ensure the two structures on the Flythe property. Once the property's sold, there is no control that those Flythe buildings will be saved by whoever buys it. But by working with Historical North Augusta, we can ensure those properties are fixed up and maintained so that a lot of stories about this area can be told for everyone. Also, one of the ideas Dave Leverett in one of those sessions was very good, and council, we supported it. We want to keep some green space on the Butler Avenue corner, put some benches, maybe a water apparatus, a plaque. Mike Hitchler has some ideas of how we can maintain that history. So we want to do that if that's possible. So that all came out of communication from you, the citizen. You gave us feedback. We hadn't been able to listen to all of it, but we've been able to take some of that. Second reason, our officers deserve a top-notch facility right now, no more delays. I had to go to a photo op for a check presented to Officer Beasley's wife, Candace, and he passed away a couple weeks ago. I'm going to tell you, I had never been in the public safety building. Why? As a citizen, I think if you're in the public safety building, you've probably done something wrong. So I was kind of proud I'd never been in the public safety. But as mayor, I'll be honest with you, I could not have been more embarrassed for that facility. No one that risked their lives for every one of us deserves to work in that environment. It's insane. It's just not okay. So enough is enough. It's time to act. Our officers deserve action now. And the last thing, and this is probably the most, I think Mr. Brooks shared. This vote to me, when it's all said and done, is about this one thing: protecting this community and providing the best resources to our officers. The bottom line for me is that I was elected and I have the responsibility to make the best decisions for the entire community. That's 25,000 citizens. Unfortunately, our citizens on Butler and Observatory are going to be impacted the most. But back in April of 2019 at the Planning Commission meeting, when we voted on the text amendment to zone the property, I went door knocking and I talked to a lot of the neighbors on the current streets where the current police station is, because I wanted to hear because they live next to the current police station. I wanted to hear their voice. And to a person, they all said they liked having the fire and police next to them. It made them feel safe, and if there was a noise issue over time, they got used to it. So it was very positive. But here's the deal. I get it. We all get it. Today is uncomfortable for every one of us. The emotions from y'all are high. The passion from y'all, it's sincere. The fear for all of us is real. Okay? But I believe as we move forward and we see the headquarters being built on that property, as we see those two historical buildings on the Flythe property being revitalized, and then they become our link to the past. They become our link to history. We put some green space on the Butler Avenue corner as well, then we have made as close of a win-win as possible for a difficult situation. We did give citizens a voice. We did listen. We took heart to some of the feedback we received, and we were diligent in this process. We did it the right way. You may not agree with us, but we did it the right way, and because of that, my conscience is good. So with that, if there's nothing else from council, I'll take a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Item 9. Item 9, resolution number 2021-35, designating an authorized representative contact person for purposes of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Do you have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Right, first, Mr. Toole, second. Ms. Carpenter. Anything to share, Mr. Clifford, on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a recommendation from the Municipal Association of South Carolina in regards to ARPA funds to designate the authorized representative and the contact person. This is an item we discussed in study session, and this would allow myself as the city administrator to be the authorized representative and Mrs. Cami Hayes, our finance director, to be the contact person for ARPA funding. So this is, again, just a best business practice as recommended by MASC, and I believe this is something that we ought to do to be in line with other communities here in the state of South Carolina.
Any citizen comments? Okay, any council discussion? All right, here none, I'll take a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 10, Information Technology, Resolution Number 2021-36, authorizing the City of North Augusta to enter into a full-service contract for audio-visual equipment for public meetings. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution? First, Ms. Carpenter. Do I have a second? Mr. Brooks. Anything you want to share about this, Ms. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is an initiative to be able to better present information here inside council chambers and also through the audio portion. I know a lot of our folks that watch on YouTube or Facebook sometimes have a hard time understanding unless you're like right on top of the microphone. So we believe this will help alleviate some of those problems. When we talked about this in study session, we had not yet fully evaluated all of the vendors, but we have done a down select, and Gaddis Pro Audio is the selected vendor for this, and so we asked to move forward on a resolution to allow us to move forward on this project.
Okay. Any citizen comments? Any council discussion?
Just a pretty simple question, I think. I mean, I obviously understand the overview of what's that. Can you just some specifics, or are we gonna? I mean, do we know what they're going to be changing just from a hardware standpoint? Just to get a better understanding what the scope of the
I believe what
work
we're
is.
going to be able to do with this contract is change out the audio component along with the video component in front of the council members. Obviously, these displays are getting pretty old, and as we've had presentations both to City Council and also to the Planning Commission, you'll get flickering through the screens. You've got some kind of freeze that occurs, and that disrupts what we can show to you as a council member and also to the public. So what we're trying to do is do a holistic change of audio and visual equipment here in council chambers, which will better serve you as a voting member and also the citizens at home that are watching.
So, but we'll still stream effectively the way this isn't going to change the way we stream and the way
No,
stuff's
sir.
archived. Because okay.
No,
All right.
that's a
purely audio visual.
a separate component, I suppose you could say. This will not affect the ability for us to push onto YouTube or onto Facebook.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion from council? All right, I'll take a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 11, community promotion, resolution number 2021-37, a resolution to authorize funding for downtown streetscapes amenities. Do you have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Presnell, a second. Ms. Carpenter, thank you. Any information you want to share, Mr. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a slight change from what I presented in the study session. We had a little more prescriptive in the study session about what the amenities defined were. I believe we had two in particular that were in that list. I've asked to remove those, and so now it just simply states amenities, and the intention is to be able to sit down with the leadership of North Augusta Forward and start with this budget of the $25,000 to best figure out what the mix is. We want to make sure we have input from the folks that are most affected by the amenities, so that I'm not just picking things out of the catalog, and that North Augusta Forward and representing the Merchants Alliance gets a say in how that money is distributed.
Thank you. Any citizen comments? Okay, any council discussion? That's why, that's the slow traffic. So we can, as we said, we wanted a walkable downtown, and I believe, Mr. Zeezer, we're getting some bigger ones, so if you do get it, it's probably dent your car, right?
Yes, Councilman, thanks for pointing that out, or Councilwoman Carpenter. That if you look for the citizens at home, if you haven't been on Georgia Avenue for a while, you've got two pedestrian knockdown in the middle of the road. You also have signage at the sidewalk on both sides going opposite each other, white signs which highlight pedestrians have the right-of-way there on the crosswalk, specifically between the Pink Dipper and Sheila's Bakery.
Any other discussion from council? Yes, ma'am. No, that's what we're here for.
So, see, I get traffic on this day, and I always say the traffic goes in the congestion. So I sort of disagree with that congestion right away, but, so, if I'm crossing right there at Sheila's, and cars and, the lights turn green, they're coming, do I have the right to go across there, or do they have to stop right
Yes,
there?
the DOT, we have white cross lines.
Yeah.
And if you go to any other community in the country, cars stop. But unfortunately, we have made Georgia Avenue a thoroughfare, okay? So yes, with the slow pedestrian pylon, with the white DOT cross lines and the sign that says slow pedestrian walk, we have got to train people that, yes, you, the pedestrian citizen, have a right to cross. That's what we're trying to do.
Is that going to be a problem though with two red lights? One at Univista, one at Spring Road.
Miss Pat, can you speak into your microphone, please?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Good gracious. Yeah, I said, will that be a problem with I just can't imagine. Let me just zoom in on across the street there, and because once that light turns green, hear those cars come. And I know we're trying to slow it down, but
So yes, we've got to be smart. If they're going fast, you've got to. But what we're seeing already is cars slowing down.
okay.
And so that's the objective. It'll take some time, but we've got to.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I mean, I'm
We've
happy
got
with
to
that.
make a positive step in that
Yeah,
direction.
that's great.
So from a legal perspective, Councilwoman, you as a pedestrian do have the right of way. Now, I wouldn't necessarily bet
Just
my
jump
life on
on
it
out
and
there.
just run out in front of traffic and hope they all stop. And I'm sure Chief Thomas would feel the same way. We wouldn't want to have a lot of pedestrian accidents. But from a statute perspective, yes, you have the right of way in a crosswalk.
I will say something. I think it was this past Thursday. Is that correct? I noticed you had one of the public safety police cars sitting. That really seemed to slow people down coming up Georgia Avenue. I came across that time and I'm like, what is going on? And then it hit me. Oh, it's Thursday. But I noticed how, because most people, it's a drag strip as soon as they leave Augusta coming in, and they hit the coasters about the time they get to City Hall and the Highlander, and they slow down to 30 miles an hour by the time they about get to Buena Vista. But maybe we need to look into something there. But that did slow them down the other day, Chief.
It's going to be a process, but we're going the right direction. Yes, Ms. Brooks.
Chief Thomas, is there any way that the traffic lights can be changed so they're not, you can't go all the way on Georgia Avenue at one time, so you have to stop? Can you make them?
We'll take a look at that, Councilman. That's really a Tom Zeser DOT kind of question, but I think we can at least ask.
Thank you. Good question. Any other discussion?
Yeah, don't let me get hit with my.
All right. I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 12, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, Resolution Number 2021-38, authorizing the design of the Riverside Village Boat Dock. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution? And I will make a motion to table it. I've been advised by our city administration that we will table this at this point. There'll be no discussion. I do need to ask for a vote. I need a second to
I'll
table
second
it. Second, Mr. McGee. And then I'll ask for a vote for the table. All in favor? That's unanimous, Mr. President. Okay. Item 13, Engineering and Public Works, Resolution Number 2021-39, authorizing professional engineering services contract for the Greenway at Cypress Drive culvert replacement. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Brooks, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Presnell. Anything you want to share about this, Mr. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So this was briefed also in study session, very similar to the IT discussion where we had not yet done a down select for a vendor. Tom Zeser and his Public Works Department has now done that with the right firm. And so what this will do is allow us to move forward for engineering services to repair a stormwater culvert underneath the greenway, and the selected contractor would be Alfred Benish and Company, and so that would allow us to move forward on doing this. And the current understanding of the project will allow us to maintain the greenway opening and be able to do an engineering solution without having to open up the greenway for long periods of time. So we felt this was a good technical solution to move forward with.
Good. Any any citizen comments? Okay. Any discussion from council? Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Number 14, economic development, resolution number 2021-40, a resolution to provide a local match for a Municipal Association of South Carolina Hometown Economic Development Grant. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Brooks?
Second.
Mr. Toole? Anything you'd like to share about this, Ms. Clifford?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So this is a great opportunity for the city of North Augusta to participate in a grant program where we have to do a matching amount with MASC, and so this would allow us to make some improvements into our downtown Georgia Avenue corridor, and some of those are listed there in the resolution itself, which include vibrancy enhancements to include murals, public art, signage, and overall enhancement of outdoor areas. And this would be for a $25,000 grant application from the Hometown Economic Development Grant, which would expire, or that we submit the grant before September 24th of this year. And so ultimately, no guarantee that we'll get this grant, but I think we have a strong package, and Assistant City Administrator Rachel Moody has really spearheaded this with a number of folks. I think we have a competitive package, and I look forward to seeing the results from MASC if the council approves.
Okay, great. Any citizen comments? Any council discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a vote then. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, any administrative reports?
None at this time, sir.
Okay, all right. Item 16, presentation, communication, recognition of visitors. This is opportunity for any citizens who have anything beyond what we talked about tonight if they would like to share. We did have a public powwow at 5 o'clock, but is there any citizen that has anything they want to talk about that's not part of what we talked about tonight? Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant. You've already done it once, but if you don't mind, just state your name and address for the record, sir.
Stephen Bryant, 129 Butler Avenue, and I'm coming to you here tonight as a father.
Okay.
I've called over 20 times this year to get public safety to monitor that stop sign. I spoke with Kevin Toole, who did his best. The response I get from the officers is, we can't go up there. We can't monitor that spot. And then I spoke to you, Mayor, and you responded back. That's unacceptable. You're talking about $16 million for a facility, and you can't have an officer monitor. Eric, you said they had them posted there on George Avenue. Why can't you post one on my street or across the street? They're running it at 10 to 15 miles an hour with traffic flowing. They did it today in the rain. There's probably, I'd say, at least 50 to 60 cars a day running that stop sign. I need your help to stop it. If few people get a ticket, people will say, hey, we can't just run that thing anymore. The DOT can't do anything because of the alignment of the road with Butler across the other street. They said all we can do is stripe it. That's not going to do it. It needs to be enforced.
Okay.
I mean, we got public facilities that are going there, and we're not going to enforce one of the closest stop signs. Okay. Please help me.
Very good. Thank you. We will look into this. Thank you very much, Mr. Bryant. Okay, got a few things need to share, and then oh, Miss Lord, I'm sorry. You're hiding up there. I didn't see you.
Roberto Artie, 346 Shoreline Drive. My point is, we did a summary of pluses and minuses tonight.
Speak in the microphone, please, Ms. Lardy. I'm sorry.
we did pluses and minuses tonight on why people chose things. And I think at the power hour, Mr. Donahue came here and asked very specifically for better financial information. And what I heard a couple of council people say, well, it doesn't look like MEDAC will work because the numbers just don't add up. Well, I'm from the school that you need to put your pencil to paper and prove it. I don't believe in somebody coming up with a statement and all of us believe it. I want to see what proof there was that it won't work. I told in my presentation, and I'm going back to the presentation because it wasn't answered, I can, with my pencil and paper, indicate that there's a $5 million savings, even considering the MEDAC. I may be completely wrong. I'd like somebody to prove that one way or another. But to dismiss it without any investigation is simply wrong. The other thing is, Mr. Mayor, you said there were 14 properties evaluated, or 18 properties evaluated. They were evaluated for a different purpose. And now those properties have disappeared. Put them back on the table. Let's see where they are. But going back 2 years and trying to remember, or 3 or 4 years, and trying to remember exactly what those properties were and the reason why they were dismissed may tell a story. And I think before people dismiss things, they should come up with proof. And I think that's what Mr. Donahue was asking for tonight. When he asked for financial records, he didn't do it for himself. He did it for the city. And that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. A few final things to like to share. First of all, I just ask that all y'all lift up Jen McCauley and her mother and siblings. She lost her father this week, and we need to be lifting her up in prayer, if you would, please. Let me just today. I think the current health situation is very serious today. So today I signed a proclamation, which is in my authority as mayor, to allow our city committees and boards to hold virtual meetings if the chairs of those groups decide they do need to do that. This will be for the next 6 months, and I have the ability to rescind the proclamation anytime during those 6 months. I do want our committees and boards to have the ability to have a virtual meeting if needed. We have seen in our school the number of students who don't have COVID but must be quarantined. In our current environment, we could have 5 members of a committee be quarantined and their work shuts down. So this just puts another arrow in the quiver if needed. Let me be clear, this city council will continue to meet in person at this time. Finally, I've asked our city attorney, Kelly Zier, to begin to work on a change in the current ordinance so we can put a policy in place for the future that allows more flexibility around virtual meetings and that allows members to call in if a meeting is not virtual, but they have a unique situation that may cause them not to be able to attend. More to follow. Just want to let everybody know, you've heard us talk the last couple of times about, we have a new forum called a Citizen Involvement Forum on the mayor website. And I can't keep expressing enough. I met a young man, Brian Williams, and his son at the Trash Bash, and he said, I want to get involved, Mr. Mayor. So, he's going to fill out that citizen involvement. David Buck, Landon Ball, Betsy Davis, they're all excited about leading the River Event Citizen Committee. They each reached out and said, hey, I want to be involved. So please understand, we're putting together a list of folks who are interested in being involved. As a proper opportunity comes along, then we'll be reaching out. So out there in the audience and in live stream, if you're interested, fill out this new citizen involvement form. This council is fostering an environment of collaboration. We want citizens who want to help us make this community better. We don't make our community better by complaining on social media. We make it better by participating in and sharing our idea, our talents, and our skills for something bigger than ourselves. So come be part of this movement that's happening. It's very exciting. The Jack-O-Lantern Jubilee has been canceled. But excluding the trunk or treat, the other events are put on by nonprofits and organizations that are not part of the city. I just kind of want to clarify that. Border Bash has nothing to do with the city of North Augusta. As I've told family, friends, and citizens, every municipality, every organization, and every individual has to make the best decision for them based off the responsibility they each have. Our city made the right decision, and this council supports it. The last thing I want to say is how much I want to thank everybody for the trash bash at the border. We had staff, we had the North Augusta High School Beta Club, we had Paul Knox, North Augusta Middle School Service Clubs, we had volunteers. We picked up a lot of trash, more than I thought. And as I mentioned, social media, we made a difference that Saturday in the community, and I want to thank all the volunteers for that. We really did win, regardless of what the final vote comes out, as far as I'm concerned. So I want to thank everybody for that. So with that being said, I have nothing else for the good of the order unless anybody else has anything. All right, thank you all for coming, and we stand.